You're very welcome along to the Matchbook NFL Week 12 podcast. I am your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined by Brad and the returning Judah. Looking forward to covering plenty of games that are very important for an open playoff picture right now. Before we get going, I want to point you in the direction. It is Safer Gambling Week if you're in the UK and Ireland. We've been talking about a lot in our podcast, so do check it out. Particularly Mark O'Hare spoke very well in our football podcast, so do check that out the first couple of minutes. Safer Gambling Week, and it's just to give people an insight. There are a range of tools available on matchbook.com to keep you in control of your gambling. Check out safergamblinguk.org. Okay. Might start with you, Brad, on the Eagles. Put them up last week in the Super Bowl, and I said to you, and I think my words were most open Super Bowl in years at that time of year. What's happened? Man, we've got Eagles, Rams, and then there's a big gap between the rest of the teams.
I think the AFC's a mess. I've got no idea who's coming out of it. All the top seeds at the minute, I think, are very flawed teams. We kind of went over it last week. So there used to be markets where you could bet the NFC to win the Super Bowl, or like the NFC plus 2.5 in the Super Bowl. I wonder if that's still around, because that feels to me, I'd say the three best teams are NFC. I think Seattle, I was impressed, even though they lost last week. I thought they were the better team, and there's a rematch in a couple of weeks, and I'll probably be back in Seattle again against the Rams. So yeah, I think the three best teams are in the NFC: Eagles, Rams, Seahawks. So if there's any bets out there to back the NFC to win the Super Bowl, I quite like that.
Yeah, Judah, talk to us about the AFC picture for people that, bet every weekend, maybe keep an eye on the outrights or the playoff picture. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, Chiefs here on some boards, not Matchbook now, but on some boards are the third favorites for the Super Bowl, and they're not in the playoff picture, and they have a bit to do to get back into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's like a really interesting dynamic, I think, in the teams that are power rated higher, in the AFC in particular. Just like the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens are just not are kind of on the outside looking in, and could be the three wild card teams. But like these guys would likely be kind of road favorites in many of their playoff matchups. So yeah, it's a really, really kind of crazy season in that way. I think that I'm very intrigued to see what the Colts defense is like now that Sauce Gardner is there and Trevarius Ward is back. Ward was having one of the better cornerback seasons. They start playing a bunch of man coverage. Like if that defense is much improved, I think it gives them a leg. But at the end of the day, like we saw with Sam Darnold last week, he's having a terrific season. The Seahawks have been awesome. I agree with Brad. They outplayed the Rams. There's just some element in come January when your quarterbacks are Bo Nix and Daniel Jones. It just does not instill the same amount of confidence. Drake May's possibly that exception where he could be in that new tier of elite quarterbacks. But yeah, I think the entire league is wide open. And it's been a long time, sitting here in week 12 and really not knowing or having a sense of how the playoffs might shake out. It's a pretty wild year for sure.
Yeah, and that's the way you can see in the ticker. The AFC is a mess is the week 11 takeaways. Before we move on, Judah, have you any teams? I'll put you on the spot here. I'm not necessarily looking for a bet, but a couple of outsider teams that versus market you think could rise through and sneak into those playoffs that come Super Bowl time, you could be looking at that, or near the NFC or AFC playoff finals. That it's a cracking value bet.
I don't know how sneaky it is. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm still there. I think the Patriots are really well set up here to win the number one seed, and that's obviously so huge. I think in your playoff chances, and the kind of if everything goes right, Drake May has been playing like the best quarterback in the NFL, and that's huge for the possibility of winning a Super Bowl. So not in terms of the actual standings, is that such a sneaky bet, but in terms of the odds, they're way down there, and I think they've got a real shot to be the number one team in the AFC and kind of ride that to Super Bowl.
Okay, yeah, fascinating value play there. We are going to cover a few bets. So basically the form of the show, for those that haven't watched before, main bets there. We're going to cover about 5 or 6 main bets and then long shots and best bets. We're also going to have a money back bet builder special, money back as a free bet if the bet loses, so you can support the guys. Just use the Matchbook bet builder. So start with you, Judah, and kick us off with the Cardinals hosting the Jags getting 3.
Yeah, I think that, this Jaguars defense has been really overrated all season. It started with just a ton of turnovers. And since then, they have been at the bottom of the league in kind of most pass efficiency metrics. Jacoby Brissett has come in. I thought last week would be a huge test against the San Francisco defense that has been terrible. But Brissett was without Marvin Harrison Jr., some of his other secondary receivers, and he was still able to. Obviously the game script dictated this, but continued to move the ball as he has virtually every week. But really, what I think most of this bet comes down to is this is an Arizona defense that has been pretty solid over the last couple of weeks. They're kind of top 10 in most defensive metrics, looking at EPA, things like yards per attempt. They, I think, are going to be able to slow down the Jaguars' rushing offense, and Trevor Lawrence really has not done much all season to overcome, and certainly in games where his run game has not gotten going. I think that the market implying a kind of 4.5 point gap here between these two teams is far too much. And yes, the Cardinals are dealing with some injuries, but I think Brissett has shown the ability to navigate that on offense against a pretty weak defense. And on the flip side, this is a Cardinals defense that's been much improved, and I do not trust this Jacksonville offense to be able to win that, especially given the market pricing at a 3-point home dog here for the Cardinals.
Okay, lock that in. Cardinals +3, the first selection for Judah. Don't know how much you got of that, Brad, or I might give you a second there. Cardinals +3 at home to the Jags. Do you like the sound of
that? I tell you what I do like is the under. Just looking through the Cardinals injury report, as Judah was saying, the defense, when healthy-ish, has been solid, and they look to be getting a couple of corners back this week. Will Johnson, limited practice yesterday. So, and then on the offensive side, they're missing 2 tackles, missed practice both days so far this week. So they could be fairly short-handed on the offensive line. And I don't feel like Brissett is the type of person who can mitigate that. He's not mobile enough. He likes to stand in the pocket and throw the ball. So if he's missing both tackles against a decent pass rush, I feel that could be relatively lower scoring. And then the Jags, I think they've shown us really that they want to be run heavy. They want to run the ball like they did against the Chargers last week. And with Arizona's defense getting a little bit healthier, I think this could be relatively lower scoring than the market suggests.
Okay, Brad, a bit of caution towards the Cardinals and going against both offenses with the under there. Jude, I might go to you again on the Packers. They're hosting the Vikings. They're laying -6, but just Packers in an overall sense. It's a team I'm struggling to figure out exactly where they are. Are they elite, top-tier team, or are they a little bit below that? What's your thoughts on the team going forward, and then why do you like them here at home to the Vikings?
Yeah, I think it's they're probably a tier below that. I think, you asked me probably 6 weeks ago, I would have said they were at the very top. I think the defense is kind of underperforming relative to some of the talent they have on the field, and then you're just somewhat limited by the way they're running their offense, which is very run heavy, and they have not been effective on the ground like they were last year. Of course, that can kind of change, and we should have a strong prior, I think, at least on Matt LaFleur's offense having success. But Jordan Love is a somewhat limited quarterback, and without the run game, it has not kind of taken the same offensive element even as last season. But yeah, this game I think has to do a lot with JJ McCarthy, and this is a quarterback who is really shown no ability to win right now at the NFL level. Doesn't say he can't get there, but he's got one of I track something called destroy rate, which are plays when you're kind of in system and things. There's no disrupting event. JJ McCarthy is kind of destroying plays at 60% of the time, which is by far the worst in the NFL. And there's just so little room to have success when your quarterback is kind of destroying the good situations, and certainly not in a Kevin O'Connell offense. The Packers, yes, the defense underperformed. It's still a team that is leading the NFL in perfect coverage rate. It's still not an easy matchup. And then on the other side of the ball, This is a Vikings defense that has been eviscerated over the last 6 weeks, and the pass defense in particular has been horrible. They're bottom 5 in kind of most metrics you look at. Of course, it's always possible the blitzes get to anyone and force some aggressive turnovers, but that's also a recipe for big plays. The Packers receivers, while all limited on the injury report, I think will likely all play, which gives them some depth here. But yeah, what this comes down to ultimately is that a bet's selling JJ McCarthy and this Packers team being able to put up points against a pretty overrated Minnesota Vikings defense.
Okay, so that's Packers -6 hosting the Vikings. Brad, the generic case for that was taking on JJ McCarthy. Any case against McCarthy?
No, I would probably prefer the under for me.
Okay.
Just because I'm not convinced by the Packers either. With Tucker Kraft gone, Elton Jenkins gone this week. So if you lose your center, and then suddenly Brian Flores is throwing all this weird stuff at you with limited receivers, especially without Tucker Kraft. I kind of think it'd be I mean, I agree. JJ McCarthy is garbage, and if you can't move the ball against the Bears, you're not moving the ball against the Packers at Lambeau. So either way, if we think the Vikings are doing nothing, it's do you think the Packers are going to move the ball? I'm not hugely convinced, but maybe Vikings team total under is another way to look at it as well.
Okay, similar lines, but once again, very similar to the first bet, Brad. A little bit more cautious regarding the team that Judah's backing. So the first two bets on insights.matchbook.com, you get a full recap of these bets. Cardinals +3 so far, and Packers -6 when they host the Vikings. Brad, on to you for Lions at the Giants. So you've got two plays here. So let's start with the total and then move on to the wide receiver then.
This is essentially, so we were against the Lions a little bit last week because they were outdoors in some poor weather, and that's not really where Jared Goff wants to be. But this week he's back in his dome, and he has an absolute dream matchup in the New York Giants pass defense, who is just awful at everything. 29th in success rate, 28th in explosive plays allowed, 31st in EPA per play. I just don't really see any way that the Giants get stops here. And what we see from the Lions, after a loss, they keep the pedal down. I think it's 13-0 now. Dan Campbell, after a straight up loss, he's 13-0. A, winning the game, and then B, against the spread as well. And B, this other stat which Cleve TA, a chap on Twitter, was talking about was when the Lions are playing a bottom half defense at home, when they're expected to win and they have the talent advantage, they are 75% towards the over in their games, going about 10 points a game over the line. And it's just the idea they just keep the pedal down. They will just continue scoring, continue throwing, continue going from fourth down. And again, last week they didn't play well, but they did move the ball better than the final score suggested. They went 0 for 5 on fourth down, which is always gonna nullify your scoring. But I'd say it's going from like a top 3 defense to a bottom 3 defense, and going from outdoors with wind to a dome. So I kind of expect the Lions to do what they want here. And then it's a case of, do we expect some points from the Giants? Still not sure on the quarterback. Jackson Dart has been practicing. Him or Jameis, I think, is fine. I'd probably rather Jameis in there throwing around, YOLO balls. The Lions have still got some secondary injuries. Kirby Joseph in safety, Terry and Arnold at corner, been missing practice, so they might be a little bit weaker there. But generally this is the Lions can score loads, and I think the Giants can do enough to get us over 50 odd is the current total. And then if we look specifically at one receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, which this is a lovely matchup for him. So again, last week, worst output of the season, most inefficient game he's ever had, essentially. He had 2 receptions, 42 yards. But he had 12 targets, and he had 147 air yards. So I suspect they're just going to keep if he gets fed at that level again, he's going way over. Then the matchup itself, the Giants have played man coverage at the second highest rate in the NFL this year. Amon-Ra leads 125 qualifying receivers, so first out of 125 in fantasy points, just production per route run against man coverage. And then he will probably be faced up with Drew Phillips, who is the 48th among 64 NFL cornerbacks in PFF grade. So I'm expecting usage and like a dream matchup for Amon-Ra. So on Matchbook, I went over 87.5 and a touchdown, which comes in at 3.25.
Okay, related double there, 3.25 on Matchbook. The over 50 as well there, and St. Brown. Anything to add on that, Jude, or any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my only concern would be the Giants' offense. And you don't even know the status of Jackson Dart, but even if it is, I would assume it is Jackson Dart, but like quarterback first game back from a concussion is not, a quarterback who's been playing with no injury for a while. Not to mention, I would not be surprised if the play style for Jackson Dart changes with fewer design runs, which I think is going to hurt the overall efficiency of the rushing offense, not to mention the passing offense. I would just have some concerns of the Giants' ability to keep up in this one.
Okay, we will move on to Brad's other selection in main bets here. So there's 49ers at the Panthers, and you're hitting the over again, Brad. It's an over week.
Over season. Yes. What do we do? So if we start with when San Francisco has the ball. Last week was pretty much the first time the full Death Star was back intact for San Francisco. Obviously, Purdy back in there after missing most of the season, McCaffrey in there, George Kittle in there, and then Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall on the outside. And obviously, they immediately score 40 points despite maybe some rust for Purdy. They had some help from kickoffs, but generally very efficient. And I think that's basically the offense that took them to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And obviously, they blew that game against Kansas City. But that was one of the best offenses we've seen in years. Now in come Carolina, 23rd against the pass and missing, well, both starting linebackers have been missing practice this week. Look unlikely to play. And again, if there's any coach in the NFL, any offensive coordinator who's going to go after missing linebackers, it will be Kyle Shanahan. So expect a lot of McCaffrey, expect a lot of Kittle. And I don't really see any reason that the 49ers shouldn't score 30-odd points. And then Carolina, when Carolina has the ball, one, it was interesting last week that they were the most pass heavy they've basically been all year long. And obviously they did well. They scored 30 points against the Falcons. Bryce had, 400 yards passing out of nowhere. And then they're going up against a San Francisco defense. Since week 6, when these injuries started to bite, they are bottom 3 in EPA per drop back allowed, bottom 3 in EPA success rate allowed, in drop back success rate allowed. And teams have been passing against them. They're slightly better against the run. They're like just sort of mid bad instead of bottom 3 bad. So teams have been passing against them. So I kind of expect San Fran to get out to this lead, and then Carolina to be forced to pass to throw up, pass to keep up. And yeah, if we expect 30 out of San Fran, I think the Carolina Panthers can chip in 20 to get us over 49 is the current line, I believe.
Okay, lock that in. And Jude, I always like getting your thoughts on young quarterbacks. Bryce Young, where are we at now?
I'm in the same place we've always been, I think, which is like, I don't think he's a good NFL starter. I don't think he's a, disaster. He's somewhere in between that, 18 to 25 range, I think. I was encouraged that they actually let Bryce Young throw for the first time. And obviously he was terrific and really throwing some absolute darts on Sunday. But yeah, I'm with Brad on this one. I like the over here.
Okay, nice agreement there. We move on to long shots. And Judah, look, we were bigging up the Cowboys a few weeks ago. Their season took a bit of a turn. Eagles have probably gone the opposite way. They continue to win and now suddenly starting to look like the team to be in the whole 32 teams, the 32 teams. If you're looking for a match to play in the alts, you're going for Cowboys here at home to the Eagles, but laying the 5.5. So that will ladder it up to 11-4 or 3.75 currently on Matchbook.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of couple full play. The Eagles defense has been awesome over the last month in particular, and certainly with the additions they've had, and that's full stop. I think that's super important. But this is still a Cowboys offense, I think, that is well suited to somewhat mitigate that. And the Eagles have driven a lot of their value from their coverage, which is obviously somewhat sticky. Dak Prescott in particular already throws to tight windows, the highest rate in the NFL. His style of play and his creation ability is not, the typical way we think about it of like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. I guess Josh Allen's bad example given last night. But Patrick Mahomes kind of scrambling around, buying time. What Dak Prescott can do is effectively throw his receivers open, which mitigates a lot of the effects of tight coverage. And I think actually this Dallas offense, as healthy, has a decent chance, especially in the passing game, to still be able to move the ball against the Eagles. And on the flip side, I think this is a Cowboys defense that has gotten much healthier since a lot of their horrific performances. And this is an Eagles team that's hurt. Cam Jurgens left with a concussion. He's still in protocol. Lane Johnson, I think, is going to be out for this one. That's like massive for a quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who holds the ball for a very long time, has had always had cogs on the outside, and Mailata and Lane Johnson have been one of the best in the NFL. And it's an offense that I think might struggle a bit in their pass game with those injuries on the offensive line, and certainly given Hurts's play style, that I'm not so sold that they're going to be able to kind of use this kind of cakewalk matchup against the Cowboys, both given the Cowboys getting much healthier and also the Philadelphia injuries on their side.
Okay, what do you think of that case, Brad? I know also you don't always play, but is this one, if you did, you'd be tempted? I mean, we were bigging up, as I said, the Cowboys a few weeks ago, but obviously different time now.
Yes, I prefer the under here. I agree the Eagles might struggle to score with the offensive line injuries, where they've had the best OL in the league for years now, and this week, like the Lane Johnson splits alone are fairly dramatic when he's on and off the field. So yeah, and obviously Dallas defensive reinforcements like that. So Eagles not to score that many. I'm just not convinced. You know how I feel about the Eagles defense. I think that's again like a top 3 unit, and I'm not convinced the Cowboys can block them that well. 26th Cowboys OL in QB hurries given up this year. So I kind of prefer the under 47.5 at the minute. That would be one I'd tickle instead myself.
Okay, yeah. Any listener, viewer, you can hear the angles from both the guys coming up with similar angles, but then going with different bets. So it just shows you there a lot of different ways you can go about it, but always interested to hear the lads' thoughts. And we're going to move on to your long shot, Brad, and it also leads into your best bet. So whichever way you want to go about this, but this will be our 10 money back special. As I said, just put £10 on this on the Matchbook Bet Builder, and you get a free bet in your account Monday morning if it loses.
Yes, so let's start with when the Colts have the ball here. So Colts at Chiefs. When the Colts have the ball, the passing offense has been worse in the last month. Daniel Jones has got a little bit back to his old ways. I think they're actually 19th in EPA per play over the last month. Still good in success rate, but the EPA tells you he's been throwing turnovers. He's been taking sacks. I think it was 7 sacks against Atlanta 2 weeks ago, and then 5 turnovers at Pittsburgh. So I suspect quite strongly the Colts are going to come out and run the ball. Obviously, they won that Falcons game because Taylor went for 244 yards. So I think that's going to be the game plan this week, which is going to lead to a slower game in general. And obviously, I think we can expect a bit less passing efficiency. I think the real Danny Dimes is coming out of the closet a little bit. And also, it's probably worth noting those 2 games against the Steelers and the Falcons, where he's been bad, been outdoors in the conditions rather than in that dome in Indianapolis. And obviously this game is going to be outdoors in Kansas City. Now, when the Chiefs have the ball, obviously we like the Kansas City offense, but they have a relative weakness against man coverage. So if you just look at the EPA splits, Chiefs versus zone, best in the NFL, 0.32 EPA per play. Chiefs versus man coverage, they are 16th. They're mid-pack, like tiny bit better than 0 in EPA per play. And I suspect, again, strongly that the Colts are going to play a lot of man. So they've got Lou Anarumo as their defensive coordinator, who's known for his anti-Mahomes game plans in the past. And I think he's probably he's now got his 3 corners healthy. Got Sauce Gardner they traded for on one side. Got Kenny Moore in the slot, good slot corner. And now he's got Charvarius Ward back from a concussion. So I think he just sticks those 3 on the outside. And I think they're probably going to win that matchup against the Chiefs receivers. So throw it all together, I think we're going to get a lower scoring game with a lot of running. So under 50.5 on the Matchbook Bet Builder is 1.9 or so. And then when the Chiefs have got the ball and there's a lot of man coverage, I'm expecting Mahomes to take off a little bit more. Obviously, the defenders have got their back to the quarterback, chasing their receivers downfield. So Mahomes over 23.5 rushing yards. And then if the receivers are taken away, I think he's going to be throwing to Travis Kelce at tight end, because the Colts also are 31st in success rate allowed to the tight ends. So that's how I see it playing out. Colts running the ball, Colts playing man coverage, and the Chiefs adjusting to that.
Okay, yeah. That's your thoughts on that, Judah. So we've got under 50.5, Kelce over 51.5 receiving yards, Mahomes over 23.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, it's an interesting angle. I think it's like a lot of, it's just mostly a preference when I like to build these bet builders is I think things that are like very clearly sequential of each other and an outgrowth. And like I think, Brad can get 85% of this case right. But because the angles are not necessarily so clearly tied as like one main angle, that's a preference thing. But yeah, it all makes sense. It's just the risk you run when you're kind of parlaying this all together and using it. You need to be right in all the things rather than kind of one thematic play.
Okay, that's 8.0 currently on Matchbook. As I said, you can join Brad and back in that and check out full T's and C's on insights.matchbook.com. Now, I sense both of you guys have a different view of the Patriots, of Drake May. So, Judah, this is your best bet on the card. So why is laying Patriots -6 at Bengals when, if I told you that at the start of the season, you'd be looking for significantly bigger than 1.9?
Yeah, well, here are the things we learned from the beginning of the season. This is like a
Off you go.
historically bad Bengals defense that cannot get off the field, and choose whatever metric you want. They'll be, the worst in the NFL. And Drake May has been a lot better than I think kind of anyone's anticipated, playing at an MVP rate. Of course, the market knows that. I think the kind of value here lies in the Bengals quarterback situation. I don't think Joe Burrow is going to play. There's obviously this cat and mouse game, and I think this number moves a lot for sure if Burrow's out. But even if Burrow's back in, it is not as though you just snap your fingers and Joe Burrow is like perfectly healthy. This is a quarterback that historically has really struggled coming off injuries. Not to mention, like, he's well above timeline right now. I don't think he would be the same player. Right? He's got a toe injury. I don't think he'd be able to really maneuver the pocket as well. I don't think he's not at 100%. That's almost for certain, and I don't think he's even going to play. So I think it's a lot of just kind of selling that, which is, I think the market here is implying that Burrow is playing and Burrow is playing at kind of near full capacity, and I don't think that is the case. And when we're talking about 6 points for a Patriots offense that's humming against a Bengals defense that really can't stop anyone, not to mention like Jamar Chase is out, suspended. They're sure T. Higgins is terrific against man coverage, and the Patriots play a bunch of man coverage. He's going to have to go one-on-one with Christian Gonzalez here and win that matchup. There's very little on the secondary side of their wide receivers without Chase, and if Flacco's playing quarterback, he's been targeting and peppering Chase with targets. I just do not see this as a spot where the market has the injury read right, nor kind of the read on just how bad this Bengals defense is.
Okay, definitely an anti-Bengals case, Brad, but I would be more interested in your thoughts just on the Patriots overall and Drake May. I know you're probably not as with Judah in that, but what reservations have you got of this team? Because they're looking very good this season.
Everything except the quarterback, I have reservations with, to be honest.
Okay.
He's good, yeah, he's been good, but the receivers are fine. Like, Diggs is fine, Booty is fine. The offensive line is fine. The defense is bad. The defense is 29th in DVOA, which is slightly worse than the New York Football Giants, who we discussed earlier. Worse than Washington, worse than Chicago. And they faced like the easiest schedule you can imagine. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to show this week. I'm sure they will score 30 plus points against this Bengals defense, because everyone does. I've not bet this game. I've got no idea what to expect from Burrow. But yeah, long term, I think as soon as they face a real team who can expose that pass defense, who can expose their lack of anything else except quarterback, I think they're going to lose. But yeah.
And Judah, you think they're outside bet for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think I just don't buy the schedule case. It's like, you shouldn't be punished so much for for the schedule. And like, look, they beat the Bills in prime time. The defense was pretty good in that one. And I think that just, yes, the quarterback is good, but it elevates so much, which is like the receiving core has not been a problem, even though it's weak on paper because May is so good. The offensive line becomes less of an issue when May is doing such a good job extending. Like he's got a sack problem. That's like, the case against, and you can't just like take out the sacks as plays because those are real and going to happen again. But like when Drake May is not getting sacked, this offense is unstoppable, and I don't think that's a function of pure matchups.
Anything final word to you, Brad?
I agree. You obviously you can only beat what you put in front of you, but just looking ahead, I don't think the Bills are any good either. But I just think there's too many flaws to overlook, and that's been a long time thing for like the playoffs. Is schedule is a very big factor because you don't see it. It's like an invisible force, like you see them battering the Bengals or whatever. You think, oh, it's a good team, but I don't know. I don't trust them.
The three of us are definitely on a path to a playoff game here, and both you guys being on opposite ends, and that's what ultimately it's all about. A game of opinions, the exact same data in front of both Judah and Brad, and they couldn't be further apart on the Patriots. Insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks, and if you can take 2 seconds and hit that like button wherever you're watching or listening, and follow and subscribe completely for free. Enjoy the weekend's football. It's getting exciting now. We'll chat to you next week. Bye-bye.